In recent years, it's been really hard to find the right comparisons for the top prospects in the draft. I mean, just look at a guy like Luka Doncic, for example. You've got this 6'7" European guard dominating like we've never seen from someone that young. But because he was European, playing this well at such a young age and gaining a lot of stock for his playmaking, the comparison that came up a lot was Ricky Rubio. Yeah, the 6'3" guard that shot 39% from the field in his career. Sure, there might have been some comparisons on their career path to the NBA, but these two were so different as players, and that became very evident very quickly. Luka Doncic is averaging, in just his third season, 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists a game. They really nailed it on this one, but this is just one of many recent comparisons that, looking back, have us scratching our heads. I think one of the hardest drafts to find comparisons for is the most recent draft. I mean, take a guy like LaMelo Ball. He's 6'7", 6'8", that we've come to know for his scoring skill set, but then climbed up the board with his elite playmaking. His unique skill set and frame for his position made it close to impossible to find the perfect comparison. Leading up to the draft, I was going with Trae Young a lot, really comparing just them offensively with similar playmaking, finishing, and floater arsenals, but obviously they were still so different in so many ways. What happens with prospects like LaMelo is these top draft websites just end up comparing them to someone with a similar frame. NBADraft.net, probably most known for their comparisons, and the one we're going to use the most for this video, went with Shaun Livingston. Yeah, the guy that never averaged more than 10 points a game and made a whopping 13 threes in his career. The comparison was just lazy. A thin-framed 6'7" point guard, boom, that's Shaun Livingston. He was a solid role player, okay at most things, not great at anything. LaMelo, on the other hand, came into the league already as an elite playmaker and has the upside to really become a 20+ a game scorer, something we never saw from Livingston. And yes, LaMelo's not a great shooter right now, but just 20 games into his career and he's already made more than double the threes Livingston ever made. Speaking of LaMelo, we've got a guy that was receiving comparisons to his brother Lonzo leading up to the draft, and that's Tyrese Haliburton. Now, I will say, as prospects, they were fairly similar. Oversized point guards that were amazing playmakers and low volume but extremely efficient scorers with pretty weird jumpers. But that's not who they were comparing him to. They were comparing him to the Lonzo that shot 39% from the field and 34% from 3. Now, obviously, we get the benefit of looking back, but hey, that's what makes these videos fun. Sure, they're both pretty similar in their defense and playmaking, but scoring, they are so different. Haliburton doesn't look like a rookie. He is shooting better so far than Lonzo ever has. He's not dependent on his three-point shot and has been efficient from practically every spot on the floor. And he's proven to be so much more flexible in a rotation, being able to play multiple positions. James Wiseman was a hard prospect to break down, as we only got to see him in a couple games on the college court. Coming into the draft, the comparison we saw was to Hassan Whiteside and DeAndre Jordan. That set the expectations very low with what we look for in bigs nowadays. Now, this was a pretty poor comparison in my opinion. If the Warriors thought Wiseman was limited to blocking shots and scoring within 3 feet of the basket, I don't think they would have took him with the second overall pick in the draft. While most of Wiseman's shots are actually coming at the basket currently, we are seeing a broader skill set than either of these guys he's being compared to. He's been taking some threes and so far shooting very efficient. He's displayed much more capabilities, getting the ball in different spots and taking defenders off the dribble. The concern so far for Wiseman haven't come on the offensive side, but they've come on the defensive side. The comparison just really missed the mark. Now let's take a look at some from the 2019 class. RJ Barrett got the comparison of Chris Middleton. Middleton is a guy that initially made a name for himself shooting the ball, and has slowly developed into more and more of a well-rounded, extremely efficient scorer. By no means does he struggle to create his own shot, but he has struggled when given too much ball handling duty. RJ Barrett is a player that so far has really struggled to shoot the ball, and most of his exciting potential actually comes from him taking on more ball handling duties. The next one is just funny, and that's Tyler Herro to Nick Stauskas, the guy that was supposed to be 6'6" Steph Curry. Well, his NBA career, it was pretty short-lived. He averaged 7 points, shooting 39% from the field and 35% from 3. Tyler Herro, on the other hand, is quickly becoming one of the most promising young players in the league. His ability to play on and off the ball and step up to the plate for a team that went to the NBA Finals a season ago was extremely impressive. So far this season, he's gone up to 17 points a game. The shooting hasn't been where we expected, but I think it's safe to say that's not going to be a long-term problem. But at the end of the day, Herro is just not even comparable to a guy like Stauskas. DeAndre Hunter got the comparison of Thaddeus Young, a career power forward who's been an okay floor spacer at times, but nothing to write home about. Not really sure where this one came from. As a rookie, Hunter's skill set appeared to be pretty limited, a lot of corner threes, and most every basket coming in within around 2 dribbles. This year, that's a different story. He's scoring at all 3 levels, and I don't think many realize just how many of these baskets are coming off the dribble. He's averaging 17 points, shooting 51% from the field and 37% from 3. The Hawks got a lot of criticism at the time for this selection, which is just funny looking back. We talked about Luka to start things off. Now let's look at some more comparisons from his draft class. You've got Shai GilgsAlexander, who was compared to DeJounte Murray. Not the Murray that's averaging 15 a game, the Murray that averaged 8 points, shooting 27% from 3. I was big on GilgesAlexander going into this draft, but he's exceeded my expectations. Now, in just his 3rd season, he's averaging 22 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds, shooting 51% from the field and 38% from 3. Everyone looked at Alexander for his playmaking and defense. These comparisons really undervalued his upside. Now, I thought his scoring had more potential than he was getting credit for, but man, this exceeded all expectations. Anytime you've got a 2nd round pick that actually ends up being a pretty solid NBA player, they usually have a funny comparison to look back on, and a good example would be Devonte Graham. A season ago, he averaged 18 points, shooting 37% from 3. Now, his overall efficiency wasn't great, but considering he was just a 2nd round pick, it was extremely impressive. Ahead of the draft, he got the comparison of Charlie Ward, a guy that managed to be a solid role player in the 90s and early 2000s, but averaged just 6 points a game. Now, to be fair, it would be pretty ridiculous to give projected 2nd round picks comparisons to, let's say, NBA All-Stars, so this is just more impressive on Graham's end rather than the person that gave him this comparison. The 2017 draft may just have the craziest ones. The one that came up the most was Markelle Fultz to James Harden. While at the time of the draft, there was really no reason not to look at Markelle Fultz as anything less than a future NBA star, things just haven't worked out that way. Maybe if this whole shoulder thing never happened, he would already be the next James Harden, but on his career, he's averaged 11 points and 5 assists and made a total of 44 threes, shooting 27%. Now, in fairness, he's starting to get things turned around in Orlando and landed himself a big contract extension. Things are looking up for him, but man, James Harden has averaged 25 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds with amazing efficiency on his career. Anytime you've got an athletic, defensive-minded wing with a long wingspan, you should already know the Kawhi Leonard comparisons are coming. The perfect example would be Josh Jackson, who, as expected, got compared to Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler. These kind of prospects are always tough, because even in the cases of guys like Butler and Leonard, they came in with great physical profiles, but very raw. Sometimes it works out, but sometimes you get a Josh Jackson, a player that since being the 4th overall pick in the draft has been barely holding on to a roster spot in the league. He's even spent time in the NBA G League. It looked like to start this season on the Pistons, he was about to make a comeback, but that slowed down pretty fast. It doesn't look like we'll ever see Josh Jackson be more than just a role player.